Today we are studying Surah number 78, An Naba Ayahs 6 to 16. So 11 ayahs in total. The first ayah, number 6, Alam najalil arda mihadam. Have we not made the earth a resting place? So point to note that the word earth in English comes from the Arabic word al-ard, mentioned in the Quran for the very first time. So let's study the ayah in detail. What is mihad? Now, mihad comes from the Arabic word mehad, which means a place of rest. It could be a cradle, a mother's womb, and it's also used for a bed. But you have to remember, this is a functional description, not a structural description. So some people interpret it as earth being flat like a bed, which is wrong. It's a place of rest. So a little bit of an example here. Bench in the park is a mihad, the bed is a mihad, and a mother's womb where the baby grows is also a mihad. Now that's definitely not a flat place. Similarly, if you have a hammock between two trees, that's a mihad. So it is showing the function, what you do with the place rather than what the place looks like. Next ayah is wal jibala autada, in the mountain it's pegs. Word by word, wal jibala autada. Jibal is the mountains and Autad is the pegs. So Allah is saying that the earth is a place of rest and the mountains are pegs which keep it stable. Now, this was a revolutionary idea 1400 years ago. And to understand this, we have to go back into history and see what people thought then. So let's pause the tafseer for a minute. And we are going to talk about a story which you might have heard before. So, once upon a time, long, long ago, when all human beings lived in one geographical area, there used to be a lot of earthquakes. And with the earthquakes came a lot of destruction, tsunamis, and all kind of problems for the mankind. And people were very distressed by it. And after the earthquakes, people would sit and try to make sense of things. Why on earth was the earth moving? And they had many theories about it. But among those theories, one became very popular, which was probably presented by a wild old man. And the theory was that the earth was carried on the back of a turtle known as a cosmic turtle. And when the turtle moved, there were earthquakes. And as humans spread over the world, they took this theory with them. So you find this theory in India, you find it as far as in China. And when you go to the European nations, they also had this theory of the cosmic turtle. And as far as North America, the Native Americans also believed in a cosmic turtle, which carried the earth. The Indians refined the theory and they said the turtle carried elephants on it. So in some books, it was 16 elephants, and in other books, like the Ramayana, there were 4 elephants. We'll stick with 4 elephants because it's easier for me to draw 4 elephants. So the turtle had elephants on the back, and the elephants carried the earth on it, which was flat, of course. And when the turtle moved, the earth moved, and the elephants tried to cushion the shock effects. But other nations were not happy with it, and they thought it was not a very scientific idea having elephants on top of turtles. So they came with their own theory. And they said actually the turtle was carrying a cow, and the cow was carrying the earth on its horns. And when it got tired, it moved its head, and that's what moved the earth, and we had earthquakes. And that sounded more scientific. Now, the turtle, the cosmic turtle, was pivotal and central to all these theories. So in India, it was known as Akupara or Chukwa. In China, it was known as Au. And the Native Americans, they had this beautiful theory that the Earth was actually a island on top of a turtle, and they called it Turtle Island. And the Lenape and the Iroquoian tribes of North America, they still have these stories. So no matter what way you modified it, the cosmic turtle was central. And you would be surprised that this theory went all the way into the 20th century. So we have Bertrand Russell in 1920s giving a lecture in London, and he's talking about the Earth going around the sun and the sun going around the galaxies. And the old woman in the crowd stands up and she objects and she says to Bertrand Russell, "This is all rubbish. We all know that Earth is like a flat plate and it is carried on the back of a, guess what, cosmic turtle." Bertrand Russell asked, "My lady, what is the turtle standing on?" And the woman, she replied, "You're a very clever young man, but it's turtles all the way. So the theory was that there's turtle upon another turtle ad infinitum, and it goes on and on and on. And people would not be budged to move away from this theory. Quran, on the other hand, rejected it 1400 years ago. And the Quranic concept was that the earth is not carried on the back of a turtle. It is the nature of the earth to move, and that the earth's movement is reduced by the mountains. And in Surah 16, Ayah 15, Allah says, وَأَلْقَى فِي الْأَرْضِ رَوَاسِيَ أَن تَمِيدَ بِكُمْ. He has placed into the earth firm mountains so it does not shake with you. And in another surah, which is Surah Al-Luqman, ayah number, I think it is 10, Allah says, وَأَلْقَى فِي الْأَرْضِ رَوَاسِيَ أَن تَمِيدَ بِكُمْ. Same thing is repeated, and He has placed firm mountains upon the earth, lest it sways with you. And Surah Al-Anbiya, which is the 21st surah, in ayah 31, Allah is again reinforcing the message, وَجَعَلْنَا فِي الْأَرْضِ رَوَاسِيَ أَن تَمِيدَ بِهِمْ. So once again, and we have placed firm mountains upon the earth, so it does not shake with them. So Allah says the earth has a nature, tectonic plates to move, and Allah stabilizes it with mountains. But how do mountains stop the earth from shaking? And what about the cosmic turtle? So the second question, answering first, cosmic turtle theory is dead thanks to the Quran and modern science. And the first question, we have to go back to Surah An Naba, resume the tafseer. So, ayah number 6, Alam najal al-arda mihada, have we not created the earth as a resting place? So, earth is a resting place, but it tends to move. The tectonic plates move. Waljibala autada, and the mountains are its pegs. They're created as pegs for the earth, which stabilize the movement of the earth and they reduce it. Now, if you look at this uh, in the pictorial sense, you see planet Earth, and this is a place where we all live, but it's made of tectonic plates, which tend to move because there's molten core below it, the lava and the molten core. And the mountains, they are stabilizing it, reducing the movement. They don't stop the movement completely, but they reduce, just like the pegs of a tent would reduce movement in a tent when strong wind blows. But the structure of the peg is very interesting. A peg has a very small portion jutting out of the ground, and most of its root is deep down in the ground. So, if that is true, that means the mountains we see are only a small portion and they should have very deep roots. And that is exactly what modern science has told us. Just like Quran described, the mountains have deep roots and only small portion is up above the surface. How deep are these roots? These roots can be very deep, up to 15 to 20 times. And it's a miracle of the Quran that it's mentioning the deep roots of the mountains and the structure of the earth's mantle and its movements. And this created a lot of interest among the Muslims in the early centuries. So we have these famous Muslim scholars, Abu al-Rehan al-Bayruni, who calculated the circumference of the earth and concluded that South Asia was once an ocean before it became land. Ibn Sina, who talked about formations of mountains and the origin of earthquakes. And within 1 to 200 years of Islam, it was well confirmed that tectonic plates and deep mountain roots are the reason for stability. Next ayah, وَخَلَقْنَاكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا, and we have created you in pairs. Wa means and this is repeated again and again in this surah, and we're going to talk about it, why it's repeated again and again. It's very interesting. Khalaqnakum means have created you, and azwaja means in pairs. So let's talk about the importance. What's so special about it? Wa khalaqnakum azwaja. Living creatures come in two types: those who exist in pairs and they reproduce for sexual reproduction, and those who exist alone and they have asexual reproduction. Now, creatures which are in pairs, they're better at survival because they can exchange genetic material more effectively. And this is the importance of why Allah has created us in pairs. Next ayah, وَجَعَلْنَا نَوْمَكُمْ subata, and we have made you sleep for rest. Well, وَجَعَلْنَا means and we have made. Naumakum is your sleep. But the word subata is not simply rest, and we'll talk about it in a minute. This is an interesting word. It means something that disconnects or cut off. Now, the great scholars of Islam have explained it in great length. Subata comes from the word sabat, which means to cut. And subat is something that cuts off. So it disconnects you. Like sleep disconnects you from the world around you. And this is from the Makhshari, who's explained in such a way, and many other scholars, Abu Ubayya, Ma'mar, and Al-Mutanna, and quoted by Razi. These are two big names, Razi and the Makhshari, and they both agree upon it, that it disconnects us, the sleep disconnects us. وَجَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ لِبَاسًا is the next ayah. And made the night as a covering. Now note again, wa. Every ayah is starting with wa. Almost every ayah is starting with wa. Ja'alna means made, and al-layl is the night. And the libasa section means covering. And we will focus more on the libasa and why Allah has called the night as a covering. So, libasa is used for garment, it is used for cloak, it's used for covering. And there's an importance in libasa. If you see the planet Earth, it is facing the sun only half of the day, and then it turns away from the sun towards the darkness. The cover of darkness helps protect the Earth from continuous exposure to intense solar activity. And that is what libasa means, the cover. Next ayah, وَجَعَلْنَا النَّهَارَ مَعَاشًا, and made the day a means and time for livelihood. An-nahar means the day. Waja'alna means and created, and ma'asha means livelihood. And why is Allah mentioning this? Now, the key here is that human beings, all their activities of livelihood are in the daytime. Ma'asha is synonymous with life also, subsistence and life activities. Human beings have two types of activities, agriculture or hunting and gathering. And we are diurnal creatures. Both of them are done in the daytime. وَبَنَيْنَا فَوْقَكُمْ سَبْعًا شِدَادًا, and we built above you 7 firm, mighty heavens. So Sab'an means 7, and Wabanayna means and we built. Fawkakum means above you. And the word Shidada, that's the interesting one. Let's go in detail of Shidada. Shidada doesn't mean heavens as such. Shidada means firm things, mighty ones, firmaments. So something which is literally firm and strong. So 7 strong layers on top of us. Wajalna sirajan wahaja, and have placed therein a lamp full of blazing splendor. Now, what is this lamp full of blazing splendor? Almost all the scholars agree that this is the sun, which brings light and life to the planet. And if you go word by word, Sirajan is something which is emitting light. Anything emitting light is Siraja. And Wahaja, Wahaj is a blazing, brilliant light. So we are saying blazing, brilliant, light emitting structure. So that's the sun. Next ayah is very, very interesting and surprising. It says, وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ الْمُؤْسِرَاتِ مَاءً سَجَّاجًا. وَأَنزَلْنَا means and we send down. Again, note the word "were" and is being used. Min or minna means from, and ma'a is water, and ma'an sajjaja is water pouring in abundance. So lots and lots and lots of water. But what are mu'sirat? That is the interesting question. Al means the, and mu'sirat is something that produces liquid on squeezing or crushing. In Arabic, asir is juice. So mu'sirat is anything, if you crush it or squeeze it, water comes out. The general concept has always been that Allah Ta'ala is talking about clouds, that the clouds, they carry water in them, and when they are squeezed by air pressure, water is released. But in Surah An Naba, Allah is talking about something different. He's talking about the creation of the earth. He said, وَجَعَلْنَا الْأَرْضَ مِهَادًا, and we created the earth as a resting place. So, yes, in normal contemporary form, it is clouds. But what about creation? Where did the water come from at creation? And there are hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ which says that all the water on earth came from heaven, and especially from the seventh heaven below the Arsh of Allah. That's the source of all water. And modern science tells us that in the solar system, we did not have any atoms to make water. The water was brought by comets. So, source of water is from space, far beyond the earth. Mu'sirat, those comets, when they were squeezed, they released water. And when earth got water, what happened next? So let's see how Allah describes the next phase of creation. And the next phase of creation is, with water, you get greenery, you get plants on the planet Earth. And Allah says, لِنُخْرِجَ بِهِ حَبًّا وَنَبَاتًا, so that we might bring forth thereby grain and herbs. لِنُخْرِجَ بِهِ means so that we might bring forth. And what is habban wa nabata? Interesting. Habba means grain or seeds in Arabic language, and nabata means plants or vegetations. And there is an importance of seeds, very important, the seeds and plants in general in human life. And why are they important? The answer is in human evolution. You see, we store our food. We grow the grain and we store the food. And when we store the food, we have extra time. And with that time, we become creative. We invent things. We make houses and we make roads and we make cars and we make aeroplanes. And it is all possible because we don't have to seek food every day. Now, human societies exist in two forms. The hunter gatherers, they look for food every day. For example, the Australian Aborigines, Pygmies, and indigenous tribes of Amazon. And the second is farmers who store food. Most of the world's societies, and ancient Aztecs and Mayas and Egyptians and Romans and Greek and Chinese. And you can see that the societies which are farmers and they store food, Habba wa Nabata, they store them, they have created marvelous structures, pyramids and Taj Mahals and all kind of great civilizations, whereas the hunter-gatherers did not do that. And the next ayah, Allah is talking about gardens dense with foliage. وَجَنَّاتٍ الْفَافَةٍ, and gardens dense with foliage. Now that is another source of food, especially for the hunter and gatherers. So you see, Jannat, Al-Fafa are two important words. So let's take them one by one. The word Jannat comes from the word Jannah. Now, Jannat is singular, Jannat is plural, and these are gardens whose soil is fully covered with plant growth and you cannot see the earth below. That's a Jannat. And Alfalfa is dense, intermingled foliage or plant growth. So, very dense, like a rainforest kind of growth, is known as Alfalfa. So, I've tried to create this image of Jannat in Alfalfa, but I've run out of trees. So, if you would kindly add your own choice of trees. We have completed Ayah 6 to 16. But I want to talk about something, the literary miracle of Quran. We all know Quran is a literary miracle, but very seldom does anyone explain to us how it is so. So this is what we're going to talk about. I want to share with you how Quran is a great miracle of rhetoric speech. So you see, we have 11 ayahs. Alam najal al-arda mihada wal jibala awtada wa khalaqnakum azwaja wa jalna nawmakum subata وجعلنا الليل لباسا وجعلنا النهار معاشا وبنينا فوقكم سبعا شدادا وجعلنا سراجا وهاجا وأنزلنا من المؤصرات ماء سجاجا لنخرج به حبا ونباتا وجنات ألفافا. Now notice, most of these ayahs, not all, most of these, they have wa in it. 9 out of 11, they have the word wa. It all started وَالْجِبَالَ وَخَلَقْنَاكُمْ وَجَعَلْنَا وَبَنَيْنَا وَجَعَلْنَا وَأَنزَلْنَا and وَجَنَّاتٍ. And there is a reason for it. And often we are oblivious to it. But when you read, you can get the rhythm out of it. This amazing type of speech is known as Anaphora, which means starting each sentence with the same word. It's known as the king of rhetorical figures, and it's very famous among world leaders. One of the most famous speeches in the world used this technique, which the Quran has shown us 1400 years ago. And let's see what those famous speeches are. Winston Churchill, at a time when England was struggling to fight against the Germans, he did his famous speech: "We shall not flag or fail, we shall go on to the end, we shall fight in France, we shall fight in the fields, we shall fight in the hills." He keeps repeating, "We shall, we shall, we shall." Martin Luther King, his greatest speech in USA, considered the greatest speech of 20th century, he says, "I have a dream, I have a dream, I have a dream." He says it 8 times, and the message went across and became very popular. But there's a problem with Anaphora speech. The start of every sentence is so strong that people remember the start, but they forget the middle and the end because it is not as forceful. People often don't remember these speeches incomplete. But Quran overcomes this problem. And let's look at these 11 ayahs again. ألم نجعل الأرض مهادا والجبال أوتادا وخلقناكم أزواجا وجعلنا نومكم سباتا وجعلنا الليل لباسا وجعلنا النهار معاشا وبنينا فوقكم سبعا شدادا وجعلنا سراجا وهاجا وأنزلنا من المؤصرات ماء سجاجا لنخرج به حبا ونباتا وجنات ألفافا. Now you would notice that 9 out of 11 have got were in it, but there are two, Alam najalil arda mihada and linukhrija bihi habba wa nabata, the first one and the 10th one, which do not have were in it. So Allah Ta'ala is using the word were, anaphora, but breaking the monotony by skipping it at 2 parts. And then there's another beautiful way which Allah Ta'ala makes these ayahs memorable. So first he breaks the monotony, and then every sentence is ending in the same rhyming scheme. Mihada, autada, azwaja, subata. And then going on, libasa. Next one, ma'asha. The one after that, shidada. And then the next one, wahaja. And after that, sajjaja. And then nabata. And the last one, alfafa. The rhyme is easy to remember for human beings. So Allah Ta'ala is using anaphora, breaking its monotony, adding rhyming scheme, making the whole passage memorable. That's why hundreds of millions of people memorize these ayahs without difficulty, and very few remember the speeches of Winston Churchill and Martin Luther King in detail. They remember the start of it, but they don't remember the whole content of it. Inshallah, God willingly, next sections have some more surprises. The day of judgment and space travel, hell and how cold it can be, cold as hell, heaven and what controversies exist about it. And inshallah, we are going to discuss that in the coming few days of Ramadan. Thank you very much for listening. Please remember everyone in your prayers, and a special thanks to those who made this effort possible. May peace be with you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.